Hello and welcome to another edition of Chiodini's Kitchen, video game recipes made real. Now this week, with Far Cry 5 having been formally announced to the delight of many, and the consternation of some, go figure, I thought it was finally time I make something from the Far Cry series. That and Ian Higton won't stop bothering me to make this particular recipe. So with that in mind, this week we're making Crab Rangoon from Far Cry 4.
Please, stay right here. Enjoy the Crab Rangoon. Don't move. I will be right back.
So if you've never played Far Cry 4, there's a bit where the King of Kyrat, Pagan Min, has to duck out of the room to take a quick phone call. On his way out the door, he invites you to try the Crab Rangoon, but what exactly is he telling you to try? Well, Crab Rangoon is actually an American invention, apparently popping up on Chinese restaurant menus in San Francisco sometime in the 1950s. It's basically a cream cheese and crab meat deep fried wonton, which is what I'll be attempting today, although ours will be baked and not fried because, to be honest, I don't really trust myself to film this show and also operate a vat of really hot oil at the same time. But anyway, we'll get into that in due course. In the meantime, for this recipe, you will need 180 grams of cream cheese, 120 grams of crab meat, a dash of soy sauce, a dash of sesame oil, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, some salt, and some pepper. And then for the wonton wrappers, you will need 1 egg, a pinch of salt, 500 grams of plain flour, 100 millilitres of water, and 1 beaten egg to seal. To be honest, I suspect that's going to be far too much dough, but having never made these before, I'm not exactly sure about the ingredients, and I figured better to have too much than too little, so I guess watch this video all the way to the end to see if those proportions are correct. Or you could just buy wonton wrappers, which to be honest would be much easier for me as well, but then everyone would have a go at me, wouldn't they? Anyway, step 1, time to make the filling. Very simple this, we just need to combine the cream cheese, crab meat, soy sauce, Worcestershire sauce, sesame oil, salt, and pepper, and mix it up with a fork. Apparently you can use real or imitation crab meat for this, by the way. I'm using real crab meat, but those crab sticks you can get from supermarkets work just as well. You just need to cut them up really finely before you do any of this bit. Alright, so that's the filling for our Crab Rangoon, and we're just going to put that in the fridge now to chill while we work on our wonton wrappers. So I've got a mixing bowl here, and into that I'm just going to add 500 grams of plain flour and a pinch of salt. I'm just going to make a well in the middle for our wet ingredients. There you go, there's our well. And into that we're just going to crack an egg and add some of our water, though not all of it. I just want to see how this turns out before we add the whole lot. And then we're just going to start mixing this up into a fine workable dough. We don't want it too sticky, which is why we haven't added all the water just yet, but obviously we want something we can actually knead and work into parcels. Okay, so here is our dough, such as it is. I'm not actually thrilled with that, to be honest. And it required a lot more water than I initially thought, according to the recipe for wonton wrappers I found online, but never mind. We're going to start kneading this now to try and make it a bit more pliable so we can work it with a rolling pin and make nice thin crispy wonton wrappers. And if you were watching last week, you might remember that I hurt my shoulder diving on a ball. It still hurts, to be honest, although it is getting better, so kneading this dough is going to be quite unpleasant, but you know what they say, no pain, no gain, I guess. Alright, so I'm not exactly thrilled with it, but this is our dough. It took quite a bit of kneading. And what I'm going to do now is roll that out nice and thin and start cutting it into wonton wrappers. We want to cut these into neat squares, and like I say, we want them nice and thin so people can eat a nice crispy wonton rather than, you know, basically a crispy outside, raw on the inside crab and cheese bun. Okay, so lots of rolling and cutting later, and I have just made it to 20 wonton wrappers, and you can see I still have a bit of dough left over here, but I thought I would just pause and start filling them, because I don't really know how far the filling's going to go, and frankly I don't want to do loads more rolling and cutting if it's all going to be for nothing. The dog's going nuts in the background, so I'm just going to preheat the oven now, and then I'm going to start filling the wontons, and then hopefully we should be able to eat relatively soon. Okay, so this might be a little bit tricky to show off as it requires both hands, but I've got my wrappers here, I've got my filling, and I've also got a bowl with a beaten egg in it. And what I'm going to start off by doing, so I'm going to take one of these wrappers here, just in my hand, come on, focus, there we go. And I'm just going to very lightly brush the edges with beaten egg, to make sure when we close it up it'll stick together. Just like that. Then we're just going to get a bit of the filling, kind of plop it down in the middle there. Right, and now, that might be too much. Here's the crucial part. We start bringing the sides up and in, and apparently it's important not to start pinching the sides together until you've got them all up, and then you start just here pinching everything together, trying to get the air out, which is especially important if you're frying these, because if you're frying them and there's air in them they might go bang. But you just pinch all the sides in together, don't squeeze the filling out, squeeze the air out, and that is a wonton. Now we just do that for all the rest. Right then, so I've just finished my folding, and as I predicted, 20 was even too much because I still have plenty of dough left over, absolutely no filling. So if you are going to make this recipe for yourself, either halve the ingredients of the dough or double the ingredients of the filling, because I was only able to make 15 of these little Crab Rangoon, but look at these! I mean, they're a bit uneven and some of them are a bit misshapen. That one in particular looks awful, but all in all I am quite pleased with those. The dough actually turned out to be pretty okay. So I've preheated the oven to about gas mark 4. There is one more step before they go into the oven. Got a little bit of olive oil here, and I've cleaned my brush and my bowl, and I'm just going to very lightly brush these little things. They're on grease-proof paper, by the way, that's an important step. I'm just going to very gently brush these because the oil is going to help them to crisp up in the oven. Obviously, you know, you could choose to deep fry these in oil and they would go very crispy indeed, but because we're doing them in the oven they need just a little bit of a head start. So I'm going to brush these off and then, yeah, stick them in. Alright, so according to conventional wisdom, those need to sit in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes, which doesn't seem very long to me, so I'm going to be keeping a close eye on them. But if you have got the spare time, why not go on a very quick local safari and see what animals are loose in your area? There's one, there's one, there's one. Okay, so I almost certainly should have fried these because they look a little bit sort of pale and anemic, but you know, they don't look awful, to be honest. What I'm going to do next is try and prise them off this greaseproof paper, because I don't know if you can see this one, that definitely stuck to the bottom, and I think quite a few of them have. Then I'm going to put them on a plate and wait till they're not so hot that they're going to burn my mouth off, and then it's time to try one. Alright then, so Crab Rangoon from Far Cry 4, let's give this a go. That is really tasty. It's a lot cheesier than I expected. I mean, I know it's like, cheese is the main ingredient in this thing, but like, it's cream cheese. Normally, it just takes on the flavour of whatever you put it with. But no, that is like a really cheesy, creamy, very tasty puff. The sesame oil in particular really works well with this. I'm glad I threw that in. If I were to do this differently, what would I do? I would definitely fry them, because the wrappers, to be honest, are a little bit bready. Maybe they could have done with a bit longer in the oven, to be perfectly honest. But it's difficult because it's a really moist filling. So you'll basically, in the oven, you're never really going to be able to get them as crispy as you would be able to if you were frying them. So I would definitely do that. And maybe throw in some more spices into the filling, like some cayenne pepper or something. But apart from that, those are really good, and they're fun to make as well. Like, I've never made wonton before. I've definitely never tried to make the dough for them before, but it really wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. If I was going to recommend a recipe you make from the last however many episodes of Chiodini's Kitchen I've done, this would be the one, I think. Obviously, do reduce the amount of dough you're making or increase the amount of filling you're making, but definitely give that a go. That was really good. That is pretty damn good. That is much cheesier than I... Well, I don't know what that was. Is everything okay? Oh, that's a blooper. So anyway, that about does it for another edition of Chiodini's Kitchen. Thank you very much for joining me, and as ever, do keep those recipe suggestions coming in, because it means I get to fart about in the kitchen with a bunch of cream cheese and crab, which is not something I could normally say of a Wednesday. Speaking of Wednesdays though, I am back every single week with a new recipe, so like I say, keep finding recipes, keep sending them in, and who knows, maybe I will make it and have a terrible or wonderful time. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are plenty more for you to watch from Eurogamer floating around my head. One's on Far Cry, in fact. For example, Ian's got some new details on Far Cry 5. Definitely check that one out. So there really remains nothing else to be said other than like and subscribe if you feel like it, but if not, there is no pressure. Thanks for watching, and have a lovely day.